Hello, amazing people. Welcome to the Ryan Files. I'm your host, Ryan Pelton. Thank you so much for tuning in. Now, there are so many topics I want to discuss with you, from AI to aliens, genetic engineering to crop circles, ancient structures, and even giants. But in order to do so, I think it's best to talk about something that is central to the understanding of all these things. Something that will give a foundation upon which an eye-opening understanding of all these subjects becomes possible. Today, we will examine ancient texts from Mesopotamia. We're going to recall the pantheon of Greek gods, and we will also look at the Bible and extra-biblical texts like the Book of Enoch. And do you know what we're going to find? They're all talking about the same thing. Sure, different faces, different names, but it's all the same story. And when you begin to understand who the Watchers and the Nephilim were, suddenly this crazy world we live in today starts to make sense. Let's dive in.
Are you not curious? Who is this man? This enigma? Yes, a man of many talents, but he is a glitch in the system. He spends his nights scouring texts for traces of lost knowledge. We dare not stand by and turn a blind eye to this man speaking on a public forum. It is all in the file. I present to you on this day the Ryan Files.
Creation myths exist in nearly every ancient culture. Many are fantastical stories that often seem unrealistic and impossible, but when you take a closer look, you suddenly realize something curious. These ancient creation stories all share similar storylines. Let's start out by discussing the Anunnaki. Modern-day archaeologists and academics are quick to support the evidence of the Anunnaki through the abundance of discovered clay tablet records found all over ancient Mesopotamia. So who are the Anunnaki? The Anunnaki are a group of deities of the ancient Sumerians, Akkadians, Assyrians, and Babylonians, all ancient cultures that lived and thrived in the Fertile Crescent or Mesopotamia. Legend states that they're all the offspring of An, the Sumerian god of the sky, and the earth goddess Ki. The pantheon of Anunnaki gods include characters such as Enlil, Enki, Ninsarag, Nana, Utu, and Inanna. The earliest known usage of the term Anunnaki comes from inscriptions written as far back as 2140 BC. In his 1968 book, Chariots of the Gods, author Eric von Daniken describes the Anunnaki as extraterrestrial ancient astronauts who visited prehistoric Earth. Later, in 1976, in the book The 12th Planet, Zecharia Sitchin claims that the Anunnaki were actually an advanced humanoid extraterrestrial species from the planet Nibiru, also known as the mysterious planet X, that allegedly is part of our solar system. Now, humans were created by the Anunnaki through genetic manipulation in order to be a species of miners, specifically miners for gold. Both Daniken and Sitchin postulate that the Anunnaki are responsible for building the pyramids and all the other ancient monumental and megalithic structures all around the world. Some even go so far as to say the Anunnaki were a species of reptilian humanoids, and that these reptiles are still around today and wield power in the human world. Now, during the time that the Anunnaki and humans shared the world, they were instrumental in teaching mankind the arts of metals to make weapons and armor and jewelry. They taught the art of enchantments and all manner of sexual seduction, astrology, and the constellations. They taught knowledge of the clouds and the signs of the earth, the moon, and the sun. They taught writings and mathematics, the calendar, hours, minutes, seconds, the wheel, sewer systems, mirrors, cosmetics, arts, crafts, toys, and more than 500 wines and beers. The Anunnaki basically taught human beings the society we live in today. Ironically, the Anunnaki supposedly left the Earth about the time of the flood and returned to their planet at that time. The story of the Anunnaki is pivotal in the modern-day ancient astronauts or ancient aliens theories. Now, these theories hold that intelligent extraterrestrial beings visited the Earth and made contact with humans in antiquity. It is suggested that this contact influenced the development of modern cultures, technologies, religions, and human biology. A common position is that the deities of religions are in fact these ancient astronauts or aliens, and that their advanced technologies that they brought to the earth, well, they were interpreted as evidence of divine status by early humans. So why is this relevant today? Well, let's continue our investigation. In Genesis chapter 6 of the Bible, we read, "And it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose." This is very important to understand. The sons of God described in verse 2 are the Bnei Ha Elohim, or angels, in this specific case, the fallen angels. We see the same term used later in Genesis 6 as well as in Job chapters 1 and 2, each time referring to angels. Now, there are theories put forth to describe the sons of God as rulers or the descendants of Seth, but neither do a very good job of explaining two things. Number one, as you read through the Bible, the term Bnei Ha Elohim refers specifically to angels again and again and again, both in Genesis and later in Job. That is the definition of hermeneutics, by the way, allowing the Bible to interpret the Bible. Secondly, those other theories don't explain why the offspring of the sons of God and the daughters of men were giants. That's right, I said it, giants. Look at Genesis 6:4. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown. Now, the Book of Enoch 1 goes into great depth about this very occurrence. Listen to 1 Enoch chapter 3. Note how it mirrors the biblical account in Genesis, but also how it mirrors the history of the Anunnaki.
"And it came to pass when the children of men had multiplied, that in those days were born unto them beautiful and comely daughters. And the angels, the children of the heaven, saw and lusted after them, and said one to another, Come, let us choose us wives from among the children of men, and beget us children. And Simjaza, who was their leader, said unto them, I fear ye will not indeed agree to do this deed, and I alone shall have to pay the penalty of a great sin. And they all answered him and said, Let us swear an oath, and all bind ourselves by mutual imprecations not to abandon this plan, but to do this thing. Then swear they all together and bound themselves by mutual imprecations upon it. And they were in all 200, who descended in the days of Jared on the summit of Mount Hermon, and they called it Mount Hermon, because they had sworn and bound themselves by mutual imprecations upon it. And these were the names of their leaders. Semlazes their leader, Araklaba, Ramiel, Kokablel, Tomlel, Ramlel, Danel, Ezekiel, Barakiajal, Asael, Armoros, Batarel, Ananel, Zachlel, Samsapiel, Satarel, Toriel, Torel, Jomjael, and Sariel. These were their chiefs of 10. And all the others together with them took unto themselves wives, and each chose for himself one, and they began to go in unto them and defile themselves with them. And they taught them charms and enchantments and the cuttings of roots, and made them acquainted with plants. And they became pregnant, and they bare great giants whose height was 3,000 ells, who consumed all the acquisitions of men. And when men could no longer sustain them, the giants turned against them and devoured mankind. And they began to sin against the birds, and the beasts, and the reptiles, and the fish, and to devour one another's flesh and drink the blood. Then the earth laid accusation against the lawless ones. And Azazel taught men to make swords and knives and shields and breastplates, and made known to them the metals of the earth, and the art of working them, and bracelets, and ornaments, and the use of antimony, and the beautifying of the eyelids, and all kinds of costly stones, and all coloring tinctures. And there arose much godlessness, and they committed fornication, and they were led astray, and became corrupt in all their ways. Simjaza taught enchantments and root cuttings, Armoros the resolving of enchantments, Paragiel taught astrology, Kokabel the constellations, Ezekiel the knowledge of the clouds, Arakiel the signs of the earth, Shamsiel the signs of the sun, and Sariel the course of the moon. And as men perished, they cried, and their cry went up to heaven.
So in short, 200 watcher angels left their first estate in heaven, which is referenced again in the Bible in the book of Jude, verse 6, and came down to Mount Hermon, hooked up with a bunch of human women, and the offspring were giants that ate and consumed everything. Oh, by the way, these watcher angels also intermingled with animals, creating unnatural hybrid creatures. And all the while, these fallen angels were teaching mankind a whole bunch of things, the same things we see being taught in the Anunnaki account. Folks, can you see it? We're talking about the same story. And the Watchers, the fallen angels, the sons of God, they were the Anunnaki, or rather the Anunnaki are the fallen angels. So who were these giants? Well, they're called the Nephilim, the offspring of angelic beings and human women. The Hebrew word Nephilim is sometimes translated as giants and sometimes taken to mean the fallen ones. Either way, Genesis is very clear when it states 3 specific traits of these offspring. 1, they were giants. 2, they were mighty men. And 3, they were the men of renown. Is it not ironic that in Greek mythology, gods would copulate with humans and they would create demigods? You know some of them as Heracles, Perseus, Achilles, and so many more. And they were all giants, mighty men, men of renown. So once again, the stories intersect. Remember the clash of the Titans in Greek mythology? Well, in 1st Enoch, Gabriel, the archangel of heaven, is sent down to earth to pit the giants against each other. And so the Nephilim fought each other in battle until they utterly destroyed themselves. All as a punishment to the 200 Watchers who were forced to watch from prison as their Nephilim children died in battle. And remember how the Watchers were also mixing it up with animals? Well, those offspring are mentioned quite prominently in Greek mythology. The Satyr, Minotaur, Mermaid, Medusa, Griffin, Centaur, Sphinx, Chimera, Gorgon, and Siren are just a few that pop up again and again, and not only in Greek mythology, but in mythologies from all over the world. The world was in chaos. Hope was a lost comfort. There was only one way to clean up the whole mess: a worldwide flood. Genesis chapter 7 tells a story. All the fountains of the great deep broke up, and the windows of heaven were open. And the rain was upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights, and the waters prevailed exceedingly upon the earth. And all the high hills that were under the whole heaven were covered. And every living substance was destroyed, which was upon the face of the ground, both man and cattle, and the creeping thing and the fowl of the heaven, and they were destroyed from the earth. And Noah only remained alive, and they that were with him in the ark. Now check this out, folks. Many in the Western world scoff at the existence of demigods or Nephilim, and especially the human hybrid creatures of Greek mythology. But had you been born in modern day Greece, this wouldn't have been taught to you in school as mythology. It would have been taught to you as actual history. Interesting. Don't you find it curious that this same sort of theme is seen again and again in ancient cultures all over the world? Gods or beings descended to the earth, intermingled with humans and animals, and the offspring were giants or extraordinary beings of some sort. Oh yeah, and they all also share the story of a great flood, and usually there's a boat of some kind described that saved a small group of humans and animals to repopulate the world after the cataclysm. So what do you make of all this? I'd love to hear what you think in the comments. As I said at the beginning of this episode, I wanted to present this background information because it's so interconnected to events and happenings in our modern world. Whether you believe in this interconnected tale that tells not only the biblical perspective of our past, but also seamlessly incorporates the ancient legends and myths of various cultures all over the world, well, that is entirely up to you, the individual. But is it not interesting that through this story, we can suddenly attach modern day happenings to the history of our ancient past? Aliens, UFOs, space travel, Planet X, genetic manipulation, advanced technology, megalithic structures, angels, demons, giants, vampires, werewolves, and even Bigfoot. Through this story, you can see how all these things may exist in our modern world because they've been here ever since the beginning. 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 They've been here ever since. I'll leave you with one more thing. In Matthew 24, Jesus is speaking to some of his disciples when he drops a bombshell. But as the days of Noah were, so shall the coming of the Son of Man be. This story I described to you today about the Watchers coming down to the earth, about unnatural genetic offspring, about the world becoming abundantly evil, this all happened in the days of Noah. So today, when I hear more and more about aliens, UFOs, genetic manipulation, strange creatures, and people with evil hearts, it makes me pause and wonder, have the days of Noah returned? I appreciate you tuning in this week to the Ryan Files, my friends. Your support means everything. Thank you. If you want to help support this channel, stop by theryanfiles.com and click on Become an Agent, where you will be directed to our Patreon page and the chance to join the Ryan Files community. An unedited recording of tonight's episode was actually made available to all my agents last Saturday, just another perk of joining the Ryan Files team. I know this episode gets a little deeper and crazier than some like to go, and by all means, I'm not telling you have to believe any of it. But it is interesting how all this fits together and connects to our modern world. And I know we may someday want to dive into topics like aliens, giants, weird creatures, Planet X. So what better way to lay a foundation than this episode? Still, I would love to hear what you think, so don't be afraid to comment, and be sure to join us on the Friday Night Mic Drop, where we can always go in and dive a little bit deeper. Be sure to subscribe to this channel and give us a like if you enjoyed this video. Stay curious out there, my friends, and I will see you right here next week on the Ryan Files.
The Ryan Files.
Chica.